I've never been in a band where like this huge friend group, they go to your shows and they don't go to any other show, you know, like they just care about your band
Right.
because it's you and you're friends with them, which sometimes I'm really jealous of because it sounds like a really fun party every time you play a show.
Mm-hmm.
But that show, I'm sure, turned most of my friends off from ever seeing me play again in Nashville.
Get off your horse! Get on the fucking floor! You know what to do! Yeah, I feel it too! Like something is not good enough, and then we say, who's in on it? Just what are they not telling you?
Hello, welcome to 3 Gigs, the podcast that tells the stories of 3 shows that have had a profound effect on a performer's life and career. Their very first show, their worst show, and their best show. I'm your host, Dominic Davy, and today our guest is Shawna Potter, vocalist for the band War on Women.
It's not just this city, this city, this city. What is the wage gap? Not big enough.
This episode of 3 Gigs is brought to you by FreshCleanTees.com. It works like a shave club, but they send you t-shirts, super awesome t-shirts. And they have a special offer for all the listeners of 3 Gigs. Save 20% off your first order by going to FreshCleanTees.com and entering the coupon code GIG at checkout. That's FreshCleanTees.com with offer code GIG.
That day, I'm feeling you.
War on Women is a co-ed, feminist, hardcore punk band based in Baltimore, Maryland, and was started back in 2010. Vocalist Shawna Potter has become known for her in-your-face vocals with subject matter that touches on rape culture, street harassment, the gender wage gap, transphobia, and other social issues. In 2015, War on Women released their debut self-titled full-length on Bridge 9 Records and has been touring relentlessly ever since. Dates across the United States, through Europe, the UK. But this last summer, War on Women performed on the entire Vans Warped Tour 2017. And Potter, for this tour, created the Safer Spaces Project, a group that was managed by 2 volunteers that followed the band onto Warped with the goal to address how people can prevent harassment and violence at shows, from big festivals down to small basement shows, and offering people ways that they can intervene to ensure everyone felt welcome and included. It was a long summer, and now back home in Baltimore, I was lucky enough to be able to catch up with Shawna while she caught up with her life at home and prepared to work on a new record. I was able to ask her about what her first, best, and worst performances of all time were, and she told some great stories, starting with her very first show ever.
The very first show ever, it was probably my first band ever, which I actually was in for years and years.
Oh.
In a way, other than like weird side projects and like fun little one-offs or whatever, War on Women is probably my third official band.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm pretty loyal. Like, I stay in bands for a long time, whether it's like good for me or toxic or not, or so you just get used to being in the band and dealing with that set of people's weirdness, including my own, because we're all weird, and you either get used to it or you don't.
I understand.
So first show, yeah. So I lived in Nashville. That's where I went to high school. There was this place called Rocketown, and it was one of those Christian places that, you know, they'd have like a dance nights or they'd have bands, and if you stayed at midnight and you listened to a little short sermon about Jesus and God, then you could get free pizza. And obviously we all cared about the free pizza. So this was walking distance from the mall. All right. I lived in an apartment building really close to the mall. I worked really close to the mall in a Joann's, etc. So this was all like within, you know, a few blocks basically. And I could, even before I had a car, I could walk from the mall, walk through the parking lot, across the busy street, which was probably really stupid, and then to Rocketown. and go to Rocketown for cheap or free, you know, and because it's Nashville, everyone was in a band because everyone's dad was like some session musician, right? Like everyone played music. It was not a weird thing. And I had already been playing guitar for a few years. And so it was actually pretty cool. I could actually find people, I could find women, you know, that I wanted to play music with really easily. And I didn't feel that way in Houston, where I went to junior high. How funny I'm like complaining about, I didn't get to play music in junior high. Like, all right, settle down.
Well, you had a clear idea of what you wanted to do. I get it. I mean, you know, there's a mission here.
So, you know, these like-minded, you know, young women, we found each other and started a band. Because it's our first show, it was under our first name, which was Calypso. That was the name of our band. And we were not going for the genre of Calypso music. We were only going by, I think it's like in Greek mythology, Calypso, or some mythical creature.
Yeah, the goddess.
So eventually we changed our name to Fair Verona, and we were very grunge. You know, I had a Strat through a Big Muff, through a Fender Bassman. Like, it was very, very, very 90s. But so our first iteration, you know, we'd only had a few songs, and they're very bare bones. And what I remember really clearly was the other guitar player, or I guess she was a bass player at that point, Beth, who later went on to start a band called Forget Cassettes, which is an amazing band out of Nashville. She was like running late, or her and the other girl were running late, and I was like so nervous. I was so pissed. It was like first full band show, I think. And then they finally got there, and they were really good friends already. And so I felt really like third wheel kind of. We had a drummer. We had a guy playing drums, of course, but it was like 3 women up front. So I felt like he was always going to feel like a fourth wheel. But I felt like a third wheel. So I was just like, we have to impress all of our friends, you know, because this show is really going to make or break us, right? Not even close to the truth. So they get there, we're going to go on
that guy. I was that guy. I was the guy that's like, this is the most important show ever.
Yes.
All of our friends are here.
Luckily, I dropped that pretty quickly in my life. Otherwise, I think I would be very stressed out all the time. It's not worth it, that attitude.
Yes, no, it is not.
So, you know, we're all wearing like these really long slips because it was very mid-90s. And we're playing for friends, like they're our age, like 15, 16, 17-year-olds. And we're like, Rocketown, we're playing Rocketown. This is incredible. And I remember vividly that we covered a Madonna song, and we did it so poorly. It was Get Into the Groove, and instead of actually figuring out what notes they were playing in the song or what the real bass line was, like, we were like, these 2 notes back and forth will do. We can sing the melody over this. It's fine. That's good enough. I'm sure everyone will know what song we're doing. And so it's just like these 2 notes over and over again, the entire song. And I couldn't sing high enough to sing the chorus. So I'm like screaming the chorus at the top of my lungs in the least musical way, I'm sure. And looking back, I'm like, I feel so bad for any friends that actually went to that show. And it's sort of explained. I've always had this thing where I'm never really in bands where like my friends go. I mean, I am. Like, I have, like, there's always awesome people and they're supportive and they like your music and that's really cool. But I've never been in a band where like this huge friend group, they go to your shows and they don't go to any other show, you know, like they just care about your band because it's you and you're friends with them, which sometimes I'm really jealous of because it sounds like a really fun party every time you play a show. Mm-hmm. But that show, I'm sure, turned most of my friends off from ever seeing me play again in Nashville. And so when we kind of matured and, you know, got better at what we did, and we definitely did, and we were called Verona, and we were, touring a lot and working with producers and whatever. Like,
I was going to ask if you guys toured.
We played to other people.
I was going to ask if you guys toured because I feel like I remember that band, and because I toured then too. So I was just kind of like,
well, this was definitely.
Did you?
This was mid to late '90s, and we played. You remember Rocker Girl magazine?
Yes.
Because we played the Rocker Girl magazine conference in 2000 maybe.
See, that's
maybe
right during the zone where I was touring a lot too, and I was in a small band.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm pretty good with names, terrible with faces. I don't think I ever encountered your band, but I feel like I must have heard about it or saw you on flyers or something because it sounds really familiar. I've heard that band name before, but it was back then.
Right. I mean, yeah. I was gonna say I'm sure there's been other bands with that name, especially afterwards. But
because we were out in Nashville
because I found them on MySpace, and I was like, another Verona, and it's a bunch of dudes. So I was like really upset.
Nice.
But no, I mean, there's a few Verona videos online. Like I put some up because I was feeling nostalgic one day, and so there's definitely stuff there. And it is 3-part harmony, grungy guitar sound, alterna 90s shit,
Yeah.
And we certainly had promise. We were really young. But we just got we kind of fell apart after signing a shitty record deal.
Yeah.
And again, like that, it sounds like, whoa, a record deal. Like, no, remember, it's Nashville. There's a million labels. This is like, especially the indie label boom, where there's like a million small labels, and that was still a possibility to get signed, and it didn't necessarily mean anything, but like, you could have some assistance getting your music out there. Or they would become an imprint of a larger label. Like that happened a lot. And so there were just more labels there to see all these damn bands that live there. But we just signed a really terrible deal, and it sort of seemed like the best way to get out of it and not owe someone else all the money we would ever make ever. We just were like, okay, we're done. Because honestly, we had that thing that I think young bands have, that idea that we've had some amount of success, we could easily have the same amount in another band. And that's just not fucking true.
No.
And I see that a lot. Honestly, I saw it on Warped Tour. Like I hope that bands that are just starting out, it can be a struggle when you tie your self-esteem to the success of your first band, and you're so young, because it's going to end. And just because any success in any other band, like, you're not guaranteed success just because you had it once. Well, however you define success, but you know what I mean?
No, totally.
And so...
Yeah. That reality, I've seen that reality come smacking people in the face, and...
It hits people really hard. It's really depressing. And you have to either just go through it and then come out the other side, or you have to really gear up to avoid it. But it kind of leads into my best show ever, at least how I feel right now. Ask me tomorrow. Good. Ask me tomorrow. I might have a different opinion.
Yeah, these are all just these minutes. This right now. This is that.
Right now, this is how I'm feeling.
This is how you're feeling. It could be it can change, because mine change all the time. But I will say, just before we go into that amazing segue that you just did, which is fantastic. Props to you for that.
It.
I did not. I will say, the thing I tell people all the time about that same exact thing, because I think it's something that a lot of people will encounter, including musicians who listen to this show. It's that whatever you do, try to love it, really, truly love it, because it doesn't always, the chemical balance of the band plus opportunity and luck and how it develops doesn't always happen immediately or ever. So
it's not in anyone's control at all.
Right. Like
you can do your best, and you can be amazing, and you can love it, and you can work really hard, and it doesn't matter. There's too many other forces at work. So It really is just luck if things fall into place, and you can't base your self-esteem and your happiness on that.
Right.
You know?
And just try and love what you do and be proud of what you do and the act of doing, because everything else is out of your hands. There's no rhyme or reason why something will necessarily click and hit for this band or that one band you did, but not this next one. And like you said, I've watched some hearts get broken as they thought, like everybody, not even being cocky, just thought everybody would love everything they did. And it's not that band. And then they get bummed when they hear people call out songs from their old band and stuff like that. It's not the same. So, but anyway, as you were saying, this all leads into your favorite show right now, which is...
Well, just that I feel very grateful for any amount of success that War on Women has gotten, because I've already been up and down a few times in my life in bands. And so every time something cool happens to this band, I am humbled and surprised, and I'm grateful. And I feel very happy to be in that place, instead of being like, of course this is happening to me. You know, right. I do not feel that way. I feel very grateful, and it really makes me appreciate it more, that I've been up and down in different bands and had literally no one care about other bands that I've been in, except even some of the people in the band. You know? So my favorite show, I think it might actually be when we played the Fest 2 years ago. So we played in 2016, but I think our show in 2015, it was a big room, the biggest we had played at Fest so far. Please look it up later where we fucking played, because I don't remember the name of it. Am I supposed to keep the names of every Gainesville club memorized? I hope not.
No, I think you're good. I remember nothing.
Thank you. It was like the Western one with the outdoor. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Okay, so no. There's more than one Western one, isn't there? There's more than one.
I didn't want to say anything.
There is. Edit fine. That.
Most of the clubs I remember are gone. You know, coming back and playing after a decade, I'm like, oh, how's this club? And kids look at me like, what? And I was like, oh, never mind. Guess that's not here anymore. You can't do that. Probably an office now.
That's a good lesson to not talk to young people ever, because no matter what, you'll embarrass yourself. So, favorite show 2 years ago at the Fest. The place was packed. It was at capacity, and we were dressed up like it was like Halloween, of course. So we were dressed up like a bridal shower, bachelorette party. That's what it was, a bachelorette party. So, and then Brooks, our guitarist, was dressed as like a Chippendales dancer, and he looked amazing. So we have sashes on and like tiaras and like woo, bride to be, and like penis-shaped things, and like it was a really like funny atmosphere, kind of making fun but also having fun with it. And everyone knew the words, and everyone was singing along, and I crowd surfed, and I wasn't groped. Hello. And like the vibe was so wonderful, and I could see like it was totally like a mixed crowd, like gender nonconforming, like all kinds of folks were there enjoying our music. And it was like, and I know that when you play Fest, it's this descent on the city, right, of all these like-minded people that dig this genre of music. And so it's very special, because all those people live in different towns, and you go to their town and maybe 10 people see you, right?
Right.
So I know it's a very unique situation, and it's not real life. It's not even like real touring life, but it gave me this hint of like, oh, I think what we're doing is resonating with some people. Like, these people found out about our music, and they're here, and they're singing along, and they're like fucking passionate about this shit. And it just felt really good to share that moment with people and kind of realize like, oh, are we really doing this? Like, do people really like this band? And it was cool. And I the next year that we played a bigger space, and I was like, this is going to fucking suck. Everyone saw us last year. No one gives a shit. No one's going to be here. It's going to be empty. It's going to look terrible. And it was packed too. And it was the same thing, the same awesome vibe. Like it got bigger. And that's when, again, because I learned some lessons, I was like, we cannot play this year because there's no way another show would match the last 2 years. Let's make a new record, you know, let's take some time off,
Right.
give them some new shit next year. But I was like, I'm not taking my chances on the third show in a row, like, pretending it will be any bigger. So
Oh.
I don't know, that show was just amazing because I think the entire time I was just in awe. I was just shocked that it was really happening. And I don't know how our tempos were. I don't know if we were playing really fast because we were really excited or what. But it felt magical. It felt really good.
That's so awesome. I totally understand, like, those moments that kind of come together. Like, for me, it was just there was a moment at a festival called Remember the Punks, which is kind of a weird name, but it was in San Antonio. And it was this big festival, and we came out and played, and I was just stoked that we got asked. We were added at the last minute, and they didn't pay us a lot, and it was fine. We wanted to be a part of it. The promoter had liked our band, but wasn't sure if we would still be good. But then saw us, and then liked it, and then asked us to do the show at the last minute. So we were like the last band to be added to the show. And we came out, we started playing, and people were really into it. But the part that really got me, like you're talking about, is when everybody started singing the words to a song that I wrote in 1998. And I was and I almost started tearing up on stage. Like, I was trying to, like, look tough and pretend that I wasn't, but I was like, inside I was like, oh my God.
Like, oh my God, that's beautiful.
They actually came.
It is wild. It is wild to like, because you remember when you wrote it and where you were. Mm-hmm. I mean, sometimes, but sometimes you don't. But like, kind of what you were feeling when you write something, and especially dealing with, you know, some of the tough subject matter that we deal with. That, you know, we're not writing. I'm not writing all the time about some faraway issue that affects other people somewhere, which is a good thing to do.
Hello?
A lot of times we're writing about things that actually affect us. And it can be kind of amazing that someone else is feeling that with you and shares that with you.
Right. Yeah. And it's just this, yeah, especially with your guys' writing, you definitely write really close to the chest. It sounds like you do. It sounds like you're coming from a place. It's not like you're talking about this fictional character. Like, you're digging into things that really matter. Like, and I can only imagine, like, how that must feel sometimes to regurgitate that emotion every time. I mean, in some ways it must feel very cathartic, but in other hands it's like, it's not like my band writes about, like, pretty trees, but at the same time
sure, yeah.
You know, but at the same time, like, we have some songs that dig deep, but, like, I have noticed that about your music in War on Women. It's really like, this is, I've thought of that before, going, she's singing about herself right now. Like, this is something that she's talking about.
Yeah, I am often singing about myself, or singing about something so common. People around me, the women around me, you know, like, it's just in the air. And if I'm not singing about myself, I might be singing about something I'm afraid that I'm going to experience.
Right. No, that makes sense.
Other women, you know, like, it's still, like, a possibility. Like, mm-hmm. and I do find performing our songs very cathartic, and, you know, like, performing live is why I'm in a band. Like, recording, okay, fine, sure, you know, like, writing, yeah, I gotta write. Like, I'm creative, and I'm gonna write some shit down, like, whatever. I'm gonna strum a guitar from time to time, but performing these songs live, like, that's what all the work leads up to for me. And I know that people like different things, but that's what it's about. But I'll tell you, I do not like performing our song Broken Record very much anymore. And it like made the most sense at the time, and for anyone listening, it's the one where I basically, for the first half, just repeat street harassment, to the audience that I've heard or that, my friends have heard. So I'm just street harassing someone in the audience, basically. And then the second half is sort of how I actually feel about that street harassment.
Right.
And that felt really good to do for a long time. And we played, overseas a few times, and this song doesn't quite translate, because the street harassment's a little different, or, I didn't feel like my message was really getting across, and so we maybe wouldn't play it in Germany or whatever, right? And that's fine. But then we touring back over here, we're still playing it, and I'm just fucking tired of it because I'm tired of the harassment. I'm just exhausted from the experience of dealing with harassment for so long in my life, and hearing about it more and more and more as society sort of accepts that it's a thing that's real and we should care about, and more people feel comfortable telling their stories. It's just sort of become more just in a mainstream culture of dialogue, right? So I'm just hearing about it from all angles, and it's like I can't stop and I can't control the conversation. And so performing that song, I don't get a lot out of it anymore. It's got to be the exact right show, where with maybe like a show at Fest where there's a lot of supportive people and they're fucking with you and that.
Right.
But some random show we're opening for someone, or if by mistake we're headlining and no one knows who we are or whatever, that's tough for me. I don't like to, I like to prove myself to crowds. I do. I actually prefer it. I prefer to win crowds over. I think it's really fun. I don't like to win them over with that song because it's too much for me.
I get it. That's a very interesting. I mean, one, I of course understand songs that suddenly at the time you're like, oh my God, I love this song, and then a while later you're like, oh God, again, this one. Do I have?
Yeah,
do I have
that can
to
happen
put it
with
out
any
there?
song. Yeah.
Yeah, and it can happen with any song. Any song can lose its luster, or change. Your feelings change. Your tastes change. Even the subject matter. But in this case, I mean, what you're talking about is a very understandable, where it's just something that now the point has become you're just exhausted, and that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's just now it's just something it almost feels like you can't escape from. There is no solace from it, whereas before that song kind of represented your reaction and being able to respond and an escape. It totally makes sense. It's not something that I've thought about or have had to deal with on a particular song like that, but that makes sense. It really does. That's awesome. Thank you so much for these stories. They're very, these are great. This is exactly what I hope for. Now, you wanted a pause before you told the worst. So
because I don't know if I can remember what the worst is. What is the worst? Is it a show where we were harassed? Is it a show where there was violence in the audience that I had to stop? Was it like a challenging show, or was it just a shitty show?
Some people tell tour adventures, of why they that they didn't have any money or the van broke down. So I noticed that because when I say worse, people are like, I don't want to tell a story about this club because some of the kids there were cool, or they meant well. I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. It's well, it's any adventure that you've had where you're like, dear God, why? Why have I done this? Why am I not? I miss my bed. One of many moments is that I've managed to break down in southern New Mexico more than any place in the world, and I think about that if there's a hell and I have to go to it, my hell will be trying to sleep in the van after we played a show, and then waking up to a terrible grinding noise in the middle of the desert again. Because that's happened to me a lot. And I'm I have a number of stories associated with the concept of waking up going, what's that noise? I don't know. It started a couple miles back. I was like, you're not going to stop? He goes, well, I was trying to make it to the next town. It sounds like we're dying. Like the van is literally
The van
dragging
is
along
dying.
the ground. So,
Okay, I have one then. I think
Okay.
I have one.
all right.
So okay, so ask me.
All right. What would be one of your worst experiences out there on the road?
Okay, so I want to preface this story by saying that I've had plenty of shows where I've been harassed, right, or groped, or talked down to by people that work there, and people that don't work there, strangely enough. And I've played a million shows where there was literally no one there except for the other bands, and they didn't like us, and all kinds of just very normal touring band experiences, touring female person band experiences. But the worst kind of the whole thing, like the whole weekend, was the first time we played Fest, actually. And I didn't know that this story would come to me, but now that, I'm thinking about it, the first time we played Fest was kind of an amazing adventure.
Hey, they can't be bummed because they got the best show out of you, so
yeah.
they gotta, this balances it out. They can't, the promoters can't be bummed. So.
No, Tony, we're cool, man. Like, don't worry. It had nothing to do with you, okay, buddy? So it's our first time playing Fest. We're all really excited. My drummer at the time, Evan, actually, he was in Cross My Heart and Hidden Hand and the P-Tanks, and so I think either he had played Fest before, or he just played with these dudes and knows Tony from back then, so he knew the deal. And Rusty, our old bass player, he had been to Fest, and but I had never played. I never really even heard of it, honestly, and I was excited. So we had a trailer with us, which is always a disaster waiting to happen. We had a trailer with us, and we thought it was making a weird sound, and so we had someone come out in Atlanta and check it out, and it was like 10 p.m. And I drove it for 3 feet, and they were like, yeah, sounds good, it's fine, bye. And they just left, and I was like, okay. And everyone else had left to go eat or something, and so it was just me, and I didn't even know what was wrong with it or what the sound was, because I just hadn't heard it. So I didn't know what to advocate for. So he said it was fine. I go, okay, cool, thanks for looking. So we're on our way to Gainesville, the longest drive, and we definitely broke down. The wheel of the trailer basically came off, like things disintegrated. The ball bearings were like shrapnel. Yep. Like it just, it was smoking. It was all of that.
I feel bad hearing this story because as you were describing it, I'm like, I know what this is. I know what the problem is.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, as soon as I say trailer, it's gonna happen. So luckily we had planned on getting in a day early because I think everyone else was like, I want to go see other bands. So that's what I had planned for as the tour manager, and as the terrible, very average tour manager. And we pull over, and we're like, okay, let's call U-Haul. We were renting from U-Haul, and they were like, okay, well, we're gonna send someone out to fix it. And we were like, don't do that. Bring another trailer. Like, we're telling you, like, I'm trying to tell you, this thing is not going back together. I don't care what parts you have. Like, just bring us another trailer. Like, we got to go. And they're like, okay, but we're going to send someone out to look at it first. So they send someone out to look at it. It takes like hours. And they go, well, we can't fix this. And I was like, no shit. That's what we told them on the phone. We need a new trailer. And they're like, all right, well, we got to figure this out. So they were calling and we're calling, and they're finally agreeing to send a new trailer out. And guess what? It's going to be a few more hours. And so it is dark. We're on the side of the road. It is dark, and we know they're getting close because they've called. They tell us what exit they're at. So we start unloading the trailer. So we have all our shit on the side of the road exposed, and we're like, please nobody wreck into all our amps and our gear and stuff. And no one did, which is nice, but we were very like freaked out. The other trailer gets there. We load the stuff up as quickly as possible, and we're like, cool, bye. And of course, like, someone had sat in, like, they sat on a tree stump and, like, sat in molasses or something. There were, like, fire ants around. Like, there's all kinds of, like, I'm bored. Oh, here's this thing to annoy me. So when we're hot and hungry, we were just on the sideboard for hours, and it was long. So Nancy, our guitar player at the time, her mom, I guess, like, bought her, like, a hotel room kind of in the middle of the action. It was like a birthday treat or something. And so we dropped her off, and we said, cool, Rusty, what's the hotel that you got us? And because you said you were going to get us a hotel, and he didn't get us one. He didn't book us one. So last minute, we're booking one out by Cafe Risque. I'm sure anyone that's been to Fest has heard of Cafe Risque, out on the outskirts there of Gainesville. It's this dingy hotel that obviously used to be something else, and then someone bought it and, like, didn't really put any work into it. And we got a couple rooms, and they were very mean to us, and I wanted to do some laundry, and they had a washer and dryer, but I didn't have any, like, laundry detergent. So I just went, like, looking just in case there was some dispenser somewhere, and I accidentally wandered into where they launder, like, sheets and stuff. And the guy comes out, like, I guess the owner sees me, and he just starts fucking yelling at me, like, tearing into me, like I'm trying to steal from him. And, like, really aggressive, like,
oh my God,
like, really scary. And then, like, the guy that was running, like, kind of he was just working there part-time or something. He was like, whoa, dude, leave her the fuck alone. Like, she's not trying to steal anything. And, like, had to, like, defend me. And I was like, whatever, forget this. I'm just going back to my room. And I was like really upset, because I was like, I am trapped in this hellhole away from Fest. Like, we're here, like, a day later, it felt like. And this guy's yelling at me, and, like, what am I doing here? Like, what are we doing here? That's the exact feeling. And then I got sick and couldn't hang out the next day. And we were playing the third day. We were there for 3 whole days, in quotes, 3 whole days. And we were playing the third night. And so, the second day, after getting in late and, like, being, like, tired and pissed at each other, like, I was sick, I had a sore throat, and I just had to stay at the hotel, like, all day. I didn't do anything. And then finally on the third day, we got to play our dumb little show, and it was cool. It was a 1982 bar. That was the first time we played Fest, and it was fun. People had fun, and no one knew us, I don't think. Like, maybe one person came out to see us, but, like, we were a very new band, and we just wanted to play, and the people that were there were very nice and having a good time, and that was cool. And so the show itself was totally fine. But it was like the whole adventure around it. I was just like, man, the hits keep coming. Like, what a weird weekend. And I was like, I guess Fest is cool. I have no idea, actually. But they obviously more than made up for it in the future. And so we've had good experiences, obviously, since then. But, yeah, that was kind of wild.
Yeah, God, no, I understand. Like, trust me, I've had those weekends. I've had those runs where you're just like, why, God, why do you hate me? What did I do wrong?
Like, maybe it's easier to get it all out of the way at once. Like, we didn't have any more trouble on the way home, and other shows were fine, but it was just like, cool, now the owner of a hotel is yelling at me for wanting to do laundry that I don't want to do laundry. I'm already annoyed at having to do laundry. It was just so odd. It was so, what could I be stealing? Those precious
sheets, man. Those sheets are important.
Those precious precious white sheets.
Those
Yeah.
white sheets. They don't. Those aren't cheap. You get those. You get those at Costco, man. That's hard.
Yeah.
That's tough.
But like we've had, like I said, we've had shows where we've been harassed by the audience, by other bands. I've been followed home by a shitty harassy band that they wanted more money and they started following me home, and I had to like lose them on the highway. Like I've had plenty of weird, strange experiences, but I would say obviously overall they're mostly good, because otherwise we wouldn't keep doing what we're doing,
Right. Of course. Yeah. But yeah.
It's an adventure. It's always an adventure.
It's
whether
always an adventure.
Good or bad.
It's true. I try to tell people all the time, it's like, hey, listen, it's an epic life, but that doesn't always mean it's going to be good. Like that means just means that your life you live life in extremes. You get extremely amazing, wonderful experiences that very few people get to have. But it also means that sometimes things are extremely epically Shakespearean level bad.
Yeah, everyone gets murdered and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone's stabbed and we all die.
Sometimes. But it totally this conversation definitely makes me think of, like we've been saying, like how important it is to just be solid in yourself and to not base your self-worth on how many people came to your show, like it just isn't. It isn't healthy. It's a very, very hard thing to be in a band and be healthy, like mentally and physically. Mm-hmm. And so to take care of yourself and to avoid, abusing drugs or alcohol or affection and love and all that stuff, like you gotta be solid. And, most people aren't that don't play in bands, like most people have to work on that stuff. And so anyone that does what we do, like they really need to. It's totally worth it. So go to counseling, everyone. And that's Shawna from Warm Women. I don't know.
And that's one to grow on. No, but you're right. I should end it there. But that's at the same time, you're right. You're really right. That's something a lot of us don't think about. And
until we have to. And that's certainly, it's easy for me to give advice on something that I already have had to deal with and still deal with, but if anyone can get a leg up, they should, be proactive about your health.
Yeah. I'll definitely say not having a band for a while and then not having the particular band, like this band of mine, not having it for a long time, definitely gave me perspective. And everyone else, like our times together now are so much more, I know it's corny to say, joyous. Because the pressure of any of those expectations are gone. We don't give a shit anymore. It's like... Yeah,
you just want to play.
We just want to play. We want to do a good job. We want to make good music. We want to write good music. We want to have great shows. Yes, we want people to like it. But in the end, we're just really happy to be together again. And we're really happy to go do things together and have fun together and talk to people as a band again. So it's really precious to everyone. Then in a way it wasn't before. In a way it was always the pressure of trying to get somewhere. This time we really just
too much pressure.
Yeah, we really just love it. If anything, it's the tough part is like realizing we can't do it all the time, but
yeah.
But
well, good. Yeah, everyone should try to enjoy what they're doing.
You should definitely try to enjoy it. Thank you so much. You these stories are wonderful. This is going to be a great episode. I'm very excited to put it together. Thank you for doing it.
Well, that's very lovely. Thank you for having me, and I hope anyone listening was at least a little entertained.
I think they will be very, very entertained. I hope we get to our bands cross paths sometime. I would love to meet you in person. I hope we all get to play a show somewhere. Maybe when you
we'll
finally play
high-five.
Fest again.
maybe this next fest.
We've never
have a new
done a
record out.
fest. We've never done a fest, and we're working on a new record. So I don't know. Maybe it's time for us to come
Dude.
out. It's been a long time.
I'll cross my fingers for you.
Yeah, thanks. No, this is awesome.
I mean, this episode is basically an ad for Fest. So, like, why wouldn't Tony book your band? You know what I mean? Like, you just shove this episode in his face, and then he'll be like, fine, I have to, I guess.
Get off your horse! Get on the fucking floor! You know what to do! Yeah, I feel it too! Like something is not good enough, and then we say, who's in on it? Just what are they not telling you?
You've been listening to Shawna Potter, vocalist for War on Women. Okay, Tony, you can reach out to Tsunami Bomb anytime you want. We'd be happy to play the fest. Hopefully when War on Women is playing too. Oh, and for the record, the club that they played at in 2015 at the fest that she's talking about as her best show was the High Dive. And we have a video up of her favorite show, and it is awesome, in its entirety at our website at 3gigspodcast.com. You can see how they all dressed as a bridal party. It's pretty cool. We also have a video of her very first band, Fair Verona, up as well. And hey, she said I could, so check it out. It's worth a look. You can find out more about War on Women, though, at their Facebook page, facebook.com/War on Women. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Shawna had some great stories. Please be sure to check out some of our other episodes. We've collected some great stories from some amazing musicians. You can find us on pretty much all the social medias just by searching for 3 Gigs Podcast. And you can find us on just about any podcast platform out there. Just, again, search for 3 Gigs. If you use iTunes, though, and you're enjoying the show, please take a moment to rate and review us over at our iTunes page. Go to iTunes, search 3 Gigs Podcast, find us, rate and review the show, and I really appreciate it. It helps us reach more people. Today's theme was Glass City off their self-titled debut album, out now on Bridge 9. My name is Dominic Davey. This has been 3 Gigs. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time. If you listen to this podcast, chances are you like music. And if you like music, you probably wear a lot of t-shirts, or at the very least know someone who does. Well, why not get brand new, blank, fresh, clean t-shirts sent directly to you? Well, you can. FreshCleanTees.com works like a shave club, but instead of razors, they send you super soft, affordable t-shirts. And getting it all going is easy. You choose between monthly, bi-monthly, or quarterly delivery options, answer a few questions about your favorite styles, your size, and what colors you like, and you're good to go. Fresh Clean Tees likes 3 Gigs so much, they have a special offer for all of our listeners. You can head over to FreshCleanTees.com right now and use promo code GIG for 20% off your very first order. That's promo code GIG at checkout and get 20% off your first order. Now, I love the t-shirts they sent me, and I know you'll love yours. So head over to FreshCleanTees.com right now and use order code GIG while you can.